person didn't want to stop talking. I was like, I really have to go.
Love that you're engaged, but I got somewhere to be.
Exactly.
Yeah. See, got a couple folks joining. So we'll just get started, and then, as usual, we'll let people in as they try to join.
Okay.
But thank you, folks, for being here today. Let's get started. So a little agenda for us. I like to do introductions just to let you know who you're working with. So I'll share a little bit about myself. I'll let Jeff speak for himself in just a second, and then we'll go through some housekeeping and resources for the onboarding session and the startup program overall. Jeff will cover a 10-minute use case or 15-minute use case he's got prepared, and then we'll create space for you all to share use case or questions that you have, and then we'll wrap up with anything that we don't cover in a Q&A, and I'll make sure that y'all get a copy of the recording, which is happening, so it's perfect. So for introductions, my name is Robbie. I am your startup program manager. I'm based in the western part of the world. You probably have heard from a person called Martin. He's in EMEA. But I cover everything in Canada, US, and then South America for a startup program and founders or partnerships. And I'm normally dialing in from the coast of North Carolina, but I have the privilege of hanging out with one of my best friends this week, so I'm in Oklahoma. I'll make sure that you have my contact details at the end of this, but yeah, I'm the person that you can reach out to for any questions about the program. Jeff, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Jeff Arnold. I'm the founder of 4Spot Consulting, 12-year-old business automation company. I've been working with automation for nearly 20 years. And the biggest thing we work with is work on making sure that we connect everybody's systems, and we're able to make sure that we're building automation for them as well so that they can get rid of all of the mundane work. We're typically saving companies about 25% of their day whenever we go through and work on automating their systems. So we're very excited to be partnering up with Make on helping on these advanced cases and on their onboarding program in general. So I'm looking forward to, we're heading to Munich on Wednesday. So I'm looking forward to being at the Make Waves next week.
Yeah, I'm jealous that you get to go to Munich. Also, not super jealous. I was in San Francisco last week. I've been living on a plane, but I'm excited to hear about how it goes.
Yeah.
And thank you for being here every week. It's a huge help to have you work through the use cases and answer all the questions. So
absolutely,
we appreciate your partnership. For resources, so onboarding sessions are something that we try to do at a bi-weekly cadence. We do an intro to Make session, and then these advanced sessions. These sessions are where you can kind of bring your use cases you want to try, typical kind of questions that you have about integrating systems, or any plans that you have to automate Make and you want some kind of help and guidance. Jeff's really great at that as well. We do partner events. So I was at BracketCon last week. We do a lot of use case specific webinars that you can attend, and I'm normally sending those out as we schedule them, so people look out for that. We have partnerships with people like Jeff. If you need more one-to-one or intimate support, Jeff's a great resource for that. And then at the bottom, those are things that you see kind of throughout the Make ecosystem, but the Academy is a great resource. We have a community. Our help center and templates are great. I use the templates a lot. And then if you're ever super stuck, something's broken, there's a customer support portal through the help center that you can leverage. For housekeeping, whatever you're comfortable with for making sure that we get your questions answered is great. Some folks like to write the chat. Some folks like to come up and ask them live. Jeff will take either. But yeah, normally around the time, we like for you to at least get it on our radar so that we can answer it when it makes sense for what Jeff's covering throughout the this automation maturity slide is a favorite. Step one is normally where we see the intro to Make content coming from. We're in that step 2 to 3 realm of either driving efficiency and getting agile with AI. I love, I heard a word in the chat. Yeah, I love this slide because you get to see kind of the scalability, right? So you start with this initial, more basic concept, and then you can move through all these different kind of opportunities that you see at the bottom as bullet points for scaling. So if any of this is relevant for you, these are great talking points to put use cases off of, or questions for Jeff. And And then the last thing I'll say before I pass it over to Jeff is that if there's anything pressing, so if you brought some things that you want us to cover specifically, you can either drop it in the chat or share it now. We can prepare to look through it after Jeff covers his presentation. But with that, I'll pass it to Jeff.
That's good. Thank you very much, Robbie. Today, what we're going to go over is, we've covered a couple different things in our advanced sessions, and all of those are available. Robbie has those available so that you guys could go back and look at them if you want to. We always like to try to cover one main topic so that there's a defined topic that we're going over. Then we can open up to whatever questions you guys might have. Today, we're going to go over the use of data stores inside of Make to create some idempotent intake. Idempotent means basically you're not going to have duplicates. So you're working on a process where you can make sure you're not getting into some sort of loop where you're processing the same thing over and over and over. And you can also use it for rate limit monitoring. And I'll show you what that means as we get into it. But it's a great way to be able to get data in. So when we talk about, we'll talk about the rate limiting kind of first and foremost, but when you're working with Make and you are working with these third-party systems that you're trying to connect to, a lot of times they have some sort of API limitation so that you can only do so many calls per hour, per minute, whatever it may be. And if you're working with a system where you can be processing a lot of data at one time, what happens is you start to throw a lot of errors. So for example, if you're trying to write to a Google Sheet and you have maybe 700 items that come across a webhook all at the same time, you're going to blow up your Google Sheet connection. It's going to start to throw errors saying that you are exceeding the rate limit for what you're allowed to work with. Well, if that happens, then if you have a break scenario, a break error handler put on your scenario, now you're going to have the usage of the action to try to post to the sheet, and then you're going to have the break action. So now you're going to retry that again, and it might take a couple retries, or you could actually use up all of your retries in the process of making sure that you're trying to retry things to make sure they actually get into your Google Sheet. Using a data store is a way that you can help to avoid a lot of those errors. Basically, you're saying, let's get all the data into Make first and foremost. 700 things hit, boom, they're all inside of Make, we're in good shape. Now we can start to throttle things and send that data out to our endpoint without hitting any kind of levels and API connectivity issues. So I'll share my screen and I'll show you the way that we would work that. We're going to be right here. And let's see, are you seeing my screen? Okay. So if we go into Make, what we want to do is I'll show you what the data stores are. The data store, if you're not familiar, is a temporary storage area that you can set up inside of Make itself so that you're not constantly making third-party calls out to a different system. What's going on? Here we go. Okay. You can set up a temporary data store, and in some cases it's temporary. It's only there, your data is only inside of there for a couple seconds. Sometimes it's minutes. Sometimes you might want to do something that lasts a couple days. It's a great way also to add a delay in your system that is outside of the normal delays that are inside of Make. So if you add a pause or a sleep inside of Make, you can put it up to 5 minutes. Well, in some cases, you want to wait until like the next morning, or you want to wait until the end of the week to run some sort of report or whatever it may be. You can use a data store for that as well. So what you're going to do in here, data stores are over here on the left-hand side. What you're going to want to do is just go in. Usually we create them on the fly. You can create them up beforehand if you want to, but typically what we're going to do is we're going to go into a scenario and we will have data coming in. So I'm going to set up here that we're going to feed data in. I'm just going to say from a Google Sheet, and I'll create something separately, but we'll do a Google Sheet. I'll create a Google Sheet here real quick just so we have some basic data. And what we're going to want to do with this is we're going to want to feed that data into the data sheet. So I'm going to put date and name and email, right? And then so in here, let's say we're going to go and we're going to watch a Google Sheet. And I'm only doing the Google Sheet because of being able to not have to run a webhook. But typically, you're you're going to use this process when you have a lot of data coming in all at the same time. So in this case, we're going to grab a Google Sheet. I'm going to call it test make, and then we will go in here and I want to pull up me. And then test make. And then I'm going to say that I'm going to pull out of the sheet. And let's say we do 100 things, right? So what we're going to do is this is going to just be a place for us to get data. This, again, typically is going to be more of like a webhook or something that's going to be getting a lot of data coming in all at once. So now what happens is if I take the data and let's say that I wanted to update a Google Sheet. If I went in here and just took a Google Sheet and said that I wanted to update a row, what's going to happen is if I get 700 things coming through here all at once, I'm going to feed that into this Google Sheet. I'm going to start getting errors because it's going to say, wait a second, we can't do 700 calls in 2 minutes. So what's going to happen is the data is going to come in, it's going to go over here, it's going to start to throw errors. And when it starts to throw errors, again, you're going to start using up extra actions inside of make. You're also going to run the risk of not capturing the data properly. So what we want to do is we're going to throw a data store in the middle of this. So if we go down here, if we just start typing in data, right, a data store comes up. It's one of the built-in features inside of make. We want to add or replace a record. So we're going to go in here. And so what we're really doing is taking all of this data and doing a very fast, like as fast as the data comes in, it's going to dump it into this data store. So now it's at least inside of make. And now we can use it whenever we need to, whenever we want to. So what we're going to do is I'm going to add a data store, right? Test make. And then I want to choose the data structure. This is going to be what data do you want in here? Okay, so the data stores kind of look like a spreadsheet, right? It has all the different columns and all the rows of the data you want. So I'm going to go in here and create a data structure. Again, I'm going to call it test make. And then you can add what you want, right? You can enter the name of the field. I'm going to put contact. I'm going to put email address. Sorry. I'm going to say email address. And then what is this? Is it text? Is it a collection? You can go through all of this. Typically, I leave it as text or a number or a date if you need to. You can mark down whether it has to be there or not, if it's multi-line, etc. I'm going to add the email address and I'll enter their name here as well. Okay. Sorry, name. And then, so now I have my data structure of the data that we want. And then you can set your data storage depending on what you think your needs are going to be. If this is short-term data collection, you might only need, and if you're only collecting the minimal amount of data that I'm collecting here, you could leave it at 1 megabyte and you're probably going to be fine. The package that you have, your subscription that you have with Make dictates how much storage you get with your databases or your data stores. And it depends on, how much you're using across the board. If you have, 50 different data stores, all of them are large, you're going to run out of data usage. I'll just go ahead and say 2 megabytes here, and I'm going to save this. Now, the key is going to be that unique identifier. This is something that you can either assign or you can let keep assign for you. In this demo that I'm going to do, I am going to assign the key because what I want to do is I want that key to be idempotent, which means that I want to make sure that I don't create duplicate records. So we're going to cover both the addition of data store and also cover the process of the dedupe when we're working with the data store. So in this case, you can have a situation where maybe data is coming in from multiple locations, multiple lead sources, whatever it may be, but you don't want to ever go through and add this person a second time into your database. You only ever want this to run one time for that given record. So what you can do here is I'm going to say that the email address that we get is going to be the key for our data, because I can go through here and say, I do not want to allow multiples to happen. So you can either choose to overwrite a record or not overwrite a record. If you wanted to overwrite the record so that maybe you're collecting data, one time the data comes in, it's just getting their name and email. The next time the data comes in, maybe you're collecting their phone number and something else. You can allow yourself to overwrite the record if you want to. Or maybe you're tracking UTM parameters, like thinking about leads coming in on the front end. Maybe you want to update so that you know what the most recent lead source was, something along those lines. You can choose to overwrite or not. And then you just feed, and this is the structure from the data store that we have. We have an email address and we had their name, right? So I'll feed that in there. And now I save. So now what happens is if I go in here and I create, say that I'm just going to go in here and put in today's date. Actually, I should do that like this. And then I'm going to say the name is this, and it's going to be equals. This. And then I want to say plus. So now, oh wait, why did they go in there for row? Anyway, let's do this then. Let's do one. So I'll just do this, and then we need at. Sorry, guys, I hate doing this. Okay, so we'll do this. I'm just going to copy this and just drag it a bunch, right? Anyway, so we'll just do that. It's not a big deal. You'll be able to see what's going on here with this. Thought we should be able to just do row in here. Anyway, my brain is not working on that right now. So we'll have this information in here, and then we're going to have the sheet here. So we'll save this, and then you'll see how this data goes in. What did I miss in here? Oh, so now you can put filters in here if you want to. You can say that data has to exist. So I can say that the email address has to exist, and that way I know that I'm working with somebody there, and I have a limit of 100 on here. So what I can do is I can take this information. We have all this information here. It's going to run, and it's going to pull all of the data that's on here, and then we'll see how many people actually come in here and get created. So it's going to pull that data. Oh, duplicate key. Okay. So since we're not overwriting the record, it's saying that we have a duplicate key. So what we would do in here is we would use our error handlers. And what I would typically do here is just do an ignore if it's going to be a duplicate key. And that way, when it hits that error, it will go ahead and just ignore that error, because that's really what we want to have happen. If that person already exists inside of there, we don't want them to have anything else change. We just want to let that run through. So now that we have that saved, we can run this. You can see it pulls up everybody. There are 31 people hit here, 29 were errors. So when we go in here and look at the actual data store of how many people were added to our data store, we're going to go down here to the test make, and we'll see what records we have. So we can see all of these are unique. So every email address in here is unique. All the ones that were duplicates were essentially just ignored. Okay. So what that has done for us is now, since we have maybe tons of data inside of a spreadsheet, we ran this, and now what happens is our data store only has the people that we want, one single record for each one. So that's the first big benefit of using the data store at the front end, is you can make sure you're not filling up this data, or if this data is going over into your database or going over into someplace else, you're not going to run this a whole bunch of times with the same people inside of it. It basically stops them at the very start of your process. Okay. So now what we want to do is, let's say that we got 1,000 records that poured in here super fast from a webhook. Instead of having issues with having it break and whenever it goes to the Google Sheet to update the Google Sheet, now what happens is, because it's all internal inside of Make, you can add those 1,000 records to your data store in 2 seconds if you wanted to. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to get this data out, and we want to take this data and we want to feed it to the Google Sheet. Maybe, we're going to update the Google Sheet in here. So what we want to do here now is we want to go in and we want to create another scenario that's going to actually pull this data and then deliver it where we want it. So we know that if we did 1,000 actions all at the same time, we're going to kill our Google Sheet. So now what we want to do is we have the data inside of our data store. We want to now go get that data. So we're going to go and say search records. Get records is what you think you probably want. Get means that you know exactly who you're looking for. With the search, we're going to go in here and we want to choose the data store that we're going to be working with. And we said that was test make. And then here's where you want to put the filter. So here's where you would say, as long as we have an email exists, right, there's data in the system, then we're going to pull that record. And then here is where you can set up your intervals and your settings that will allow you to throttle this information. So you might want to run this, say, you have things going on, you might want to run this every minute so that it just grabs one record per minute and puts into the system. You could set it up in between certain hours. So if you're dumping data, say you're collecting leads from your website all during the day and night, and you want to trigger something the next morning for those people that had submitted information at night, you can set this to run starting at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., and then have it process into whatever it needs to have happen. So you can do that with the advanced settings, okay? We're going to say we want to run this every 15 minutes. And so we'll save that. And then what we'll do is I'm just going to use Google Sheets again, just for the easy example. We want to take this data and feed it into a Google Sheet. So now we want to go and we want to say that we want to, let's say we're going to add a row to another Google Sheet here. So I'll make another thing here that's called Sheet 2, okay? And I'll copy the same info. So now maybe this is a listing of people that have had phone calls made, people they need to call, whatever it is. You can have this set up. So now it's going to run, it's going to pull these people out of the data store at whatever given time frame you wanted. And then it will feed them over here into the Google Sheet. Again, same thing. You just go into the Google Sheet and grab the file we want. And we want to go to Sheet 2 this time. And we're just going to feed in the data that we get here. So when you click here, you now get to see what data is inside of the data store. Inside the record itself has an email or a name. So we're going to go to the name field and plug that in, email, plug that in, and hit save. Okay. And so now we have this set up. So now inside of this initial run, we might get 1,000 people flying through here super fast. Then what we can do is it saves it all inside the data store. It makes sure that we have unique records in the data store, so we're not getting tons of duplicates. And then when we come over here, this is going to be like step 2. We would then run this maybe every minute or something in order to process what goes into that Google Sheet, okay? In here, the other thing you can do is you can go in and you can help also throttle the number of records you're going to let through here at any given time. So let's say that you're working with 1,000 things and you know that you can hit the Google Sheet every minute with maybe 5 of them. So what you would do is you would change this to say every minute we're going to go and check the data store. And then what we want to do is say the bundle order position is lower than. It's going to be a number sequence. So we want to say numeric. And we'll say that it's less than 6. This will pull 5 people at a time and put them into your Google Sheet, okay? So now we have that structured and we have the Google Sheet set. Now, whenever we run this, it's going to pull the people out of our sheet. It's going to add them to our Google Sheet, right? There are 4 people that were added to our Google Sheet here. And then the next thing you want to do inside of here, because this is a temporary data store, assuming you're not using it for deduplication, what you would want to do is do one of 2 things. If you are keeping track so that this is idempotent, right? We want to make sure that we never have a duplicate record run through here. In that case, you will want to keep those people inside of that spreadsheet. I'm sorry, inside of the data store. So what we'll want to do is we are going to want to update that record, right? We're going to go into the data store again, and we are going to want to update a record. So it's add or replace or update. In this case, we'll just do update. And what I want to do is I want to do one more thing that I should have done at the beginning. what we want to do is we want to add one more thing to this data structure. We want to add a field for like processed, for example. So in here, from your data store, right? That's here, right? Okay. So in here, what you can do is you can go in and you can edit your data structures. Each data store has a data structure. So this was called test make, right? So we'll go down here, test make. And what you can do here is you can go in and you can add another field. Okay, so I'm going to add an item, and it's going to be a field called processed. And I'm just going to go ahead and save that. So now, whenever I'm working inside of here, I'm going to save this and then refresh to make sure I pull the most recent data. So what we're going to do here now is, if we are keeping this so that it's being used to make sure that we are not getting duplicates, then what we want to do is we want to update that record. Okay, so we're going to go in here, we're going to update the record, we're going to go down, and then what we'll do is we're going to say the key, right? We can grab the key of the record that we're working with. So we're going to grab that key, and then what we are going to do is we are going to add the word yes to the processed field. Okay, so we can save that. So now what's going to happen is we are going to take the record, put it on the spreadsheet, update it to say yes, it has been processed. Okay, and so I can run that, and now we're going to see that where did the field go here? And so what will happen is we can use that as a filter inside of our spreadsheet. So here what we can do is, where we're pulling people out of here, we can set up a rule. We have email exists and processed does not exist. Okay. When we do this, what it's saying is it's saying only pull the new records out of the database. So maybe yesterday you had 500 people come in here and they processed, and now they all have processed in the processed column. And so now when this runs again, it's going to skip all of the people that say processed in the data store, and it is then going to go in and it will only grab the new people. Okay. So in this data store, go back here and I'll show you that it says processed. So now you see these people all say processed, they will get skipped. So now when I go through here and run this again, nobody goes through, because every single person inside of there says that they have already been processed. Okay, I'm going to take out some of these. Actually, I'll take out all of them, and then I'll save my changes. So if you're using as dedupe, you want to keep them in there, and you want to go ahead and mark them as processed. Okay. If you're using it as a temporary store, like I want all these things to go in here, but I'm going to have them process very quickly, and I'm only using the data store as a throttle for my inbound data, then you can just delete the data. So instead of using an update record, you can just go in here and you can use a delete record. Not all, but you want to just delete one. So you would do the same thing. You would set up a delete record. You would choose your data store, and then you would say delete this key. Okay. And now what happens when you run this, it's temporary data is flowing in here, and then temporary data is going to be here. It's used for whatever your action steps are, right? You can have a huge scenario built here with anything you want to do with that data. But then when you're done with it, you just want to delete that out of there so that you can keep your data store a lot smaller. So now when we run this, it's going to run through, pull everybody. And now when we look at our data store, it should be blank. And it is. So now what happened is you can keep that data store like 1 megabyte. You don't have to use up all your space, because now what you've done is you've set this up to run and do whatever you want it to do. And then you want it to go and delete that record out of the data store. Okay. So it's a two-part thing. I would always recommend, when you're working with this, is I'll say inbound leads, step 1. Name your steps so that you have all your data here. And then the other thing you can do, which I always like to do for easy auditing, is I'll go in, this is going to be step 2. And then what I like to do is copy the URLs of the two things and add a note in here that says feeds to, and then put in the URL of the make scenario that is then going to use this data. And then same thing here, I copy this, I go into here, and I add a note that says comes from. And I put that URL in there as well. Because now, whenever you get to the point where you have, 30, 40, 500, 600 different scenarios in make, now when you go in to do any type of an audit and you're like, oh, I'm in here, like, oh, it's going to a data store, I wonder what happens with that. Then you can go here and go, oh yeah, this is the step 2 that it works with. So you can easily follow the bouncing ball of where your data is going. So data into the data store, keep the record there, and then here at the end, you pull the data at whatever time frame you want. It could be short time frames, it could be long time frames. You can set up by using the bundle order position. You can set up how many you want to let through at any given time frame. Okay. And then if you are going to keep this information so that you're making sure you're using unique records, then what you want to do is use the update record and feed data into that processed column, so that you know that you're not going to pull those people whenever you pull this. And if you're going to use this as a temporary data store where you're going to delete people, then what you want to do is run this data and just use the delete data step, which will then keep your data store cleaned up every single time this runs. Okay. That becomes very, very useful when you start working with clients that have large numbers of contacts. We work with some clients that have between 300,000 and 500,000 contacts in their CRM, and they want to do some sort of data transfer or move data around. They'll do something like this so that we can put that data into the data store very quickly. We know we won't hit errors with our intake, and then we process from here and take it back out. Okay. Now, one other thing I will mention is if you're using, we have clients that are using HubSpot, clients that are using Keep, the contact record they're dealing with might have a lot of fields that they want to be able to capture in order to transfer. So one little trick that we've done is, instead of trying to map every single field into the data store, using Keep as an example, what we'll do is we'll have the data feed in, we'll put into the data store just the contact ID of the record inside of the CRM. So like the HubSpot ID or the Keep ID. And then when we pull the data out of here, the step that we insert first is going to that given CRM and pulling that record out of the CRM. That way, if we're trying to do something with 30 or 40 different fields, we don't have to map it all over into the data store and then map it all from the data store into the next step. All we have to do is put in the contact record into the data store. And then the first step that we run right here is where we pull that record out of the database, whatever that is, Keep or HubSpot or whatever. We'll pull that data out of the CRM. And now we have access to every single piece of data on that record. And it saves us a lot of time of mapping data back and forth into the data store. Okay. So that's kind of the things I wanted to talk about on the data store piece. It can be very, very useful for, again, deduping, and very useful. We use it a lot for the throttling. If we have a lot of data coming through at one time, we can use it as the throttle. So any questions on the data store usage and how you can work with that? No? All right. Another thing that I have on the sheet, if you download the sheet for data usage, the other thing you can do inside of here is you can also use this as a way to normalize things. So for example, if you're feeding data into the data store, and let's say you want the email to always be lowercase, you can do a change case here. If you want it always to be uppercase, you can do that. Same thing with the name. If you wanted to do some sort of case formatting for capitalize or start case, you can go in here and you can wrap the data. So let's say I want to do start case on here. So inside of here, what it will do is, as you can see for start cases, it's going to normalize this in case they enter all caps in whatever system you're using. Now it's going to give them capital first, lowercase second letter. So it gives you a way in here also to normalize all of your data. Phone numbers are really big for normalization, going in and normalizing phone numbers. Setting all the emails to all lowercase so that everything is equal whenever you feed it in. It's a great way to clean up your data if you're using the data store inside of there as well. So that's the use of data stores and how you can use those to be really effective for deduping and also for working on throttling your information. Any questions on that, or you guys want to dive into more advanced items? No questions? All right. So let's go for what questions do you have for advanced use case things? Anybody? No?
For use cases or ideas, yeah. Maybe that would be helpful. And thanks, Jeff. That was great. I didn't know how to use data stores. I feel like I learned something every time we have these sessions about how to use it. So appreciate that.
No problem. Anybody have anything specific they wanted to ask? No?
What about like use cases people are planning or like maybe ideas about how you can leverage make that you haven't really thought out yet that we can maybe process with you live? This time's yours, so yeah. Let's start looking up.
Anything? No? All right, well, I mean, I'm available if anybody has questions. If not, I guess we can end the session.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I had somebody's asking me a question here. I just got distracted for a few minutes.
no problem.
Apologize.
Okay.
Do something, but I wonder, can we touch on like the AI agents a little bit, or we don't have enough time for that?
We can talk about that a little bit. I think for our next session that we do is going to be more on the AI agents for sure. But is there anything specific you were looking at, or just the basic overview of how it works?
Yeah, a little bit of an overview, maybe some use cases.
Okay. So inside of the AI agents that we're working with, the AI agent basically is a tool that will allow you to put a decision engine, for lack of other words, at the front of your various scenarios that you have built. So let's say, for example, you have 8 scenarios built that deal with, let's say, just do lead intake, right? We'll say it's new lead intake. And inside of that, you want to look at that and say, if the person was a lead from lead source A, we want to trigger this automation that will do certain things. So maybe you want to put them into your CRM, tag them a certain way, and then maybe do some outreach a special way, trigger maybe a voice drop or a text message or something along those lines. And so your first automation is for lead source A, and then the second one's for B, and then C, and then D might be for one that's indeterminable, like you're not quite sure where the lead came from. You could have another option, which would be option D, and that has some other things involved with it. And so what you're going to do is you're going to put this AI agent at the front of it. Okay, so it's going to be the first step inside of the agent that you're looking to create. Oh, it's going to make me add my... We'll just use a small model. So what you would do here is you would put your prompt in here. You would say, here's a lead that's coming from one of our lead sources. We want you to look at it and determine what lead source we want to it's coming from. And if it's, you would basically tell it what you want it to do. So it's basically kind of like if you were looking at your email and you got a lead coming in, you would evaluate that lead and determine where the lead source comes from. And then you would be able to tell it what you want to do inside of there. So you would say, you know, if the lead is from lead source A, we want to go ahead and we want to make sure that this automation runs. And then it would go ahead and automatically take that and put it into the automation A that you have there. And then what you could do is maybe after you run automation A, which is going to go through and do whatever you want it to do, you could then have it come back to that agent and evaluate it again and determine if anything else needs to happen. So it'll fire that one agent, it'll run, it comes back to see if there's more decision that needs to be made. And then if there's more decision to be made, like maybe it's if the lead indicates maybe you're doing financial services, if the lead says that they have more than $1 million in assets, then we want to trigger them to something else. And then it could go through and then take care of the next step that you want to have handled with that individual. So it's really kind of just the decisioning engine at the front end, where it can keep coming back and deciding, do I need to do more with this person? But it's basically just I call it like a traffic cop at the front end that will trigger all of the different scenarios. The agent itself isn't necessarily running any type of action. It's triggering the scenarios that have action. So runs the decision, triggers the actions, comes back, decides if more needs to be done or whether it's complete.
Yeah, we commonly describe the like use of scenarios or like tools. So like Jeff just described, like you have 8 different tools that you have access to based on the prompt, and the goal of the agent is going to decide which one it uses first. And then it'll come back and say, all right, I now need to use this tool, and so on and so forth. But you give it, and after you create the prompt, you can go through and authorize which scenarios you want it to use. And then for different segments of the agent, you can have like primary scenarios. We know that based off of our lead flow process, that's these 3 things are probably going to happen. And then for each maybe additional agent that you deploy, you can have like secondary scenarios that could be like, you know, variables or tools that can be used for special cases or based on how the prompt is built for that agent. You know,
and it allows you to build, you know, you can build a lot of this just using filters. But what happens is filters are great if you have absolute data. Filters are great if you have a few decisions you need to make. But what the AI agent allows you to do is build a more robust system so that you don't have to say, if it has this and it has that, but it doesn't have this and doesn't have that. Like you can get into like your filters, you know, start to become very robust with everything that's there. And then if you want to add something else into it, now you need to go back through all of those filters. This is the biggest question we get is like, what's the difference between creating an agent and having filters? There's a slight nuance to it, but the biggest thing is that, you know, if you're using that scenario I used, you have A, B, C, and D for your different lead sources. And then maybe you have like 4 other scenarios that deal with another aspect of what's going on, and you need them to run sequentially. What happens is if you build the filters will work one time, right? It's going to filter going into A, and then it's going to filter going into the next step. You don't want that to happen necessarily. You want it to come back and you want it to work in succession. So you set the filter, the AI agent up to be able to say, you know, we want to evaluate this lead. We want to put it into A, B, C, or D. And then it does that. Then when it comes back, it says, if it's run through A, B, C, or D, then we want to go to the next step, which is this and this and this. And so instead of building a multi-chained, you know, router system where it has one filter and then it gets through and then you have to filter it again and filter it again, you can use the agent in the front end, send it back in. The agent makes the intelligent decision of where it needs to go at any given time. So it saves you a ton of coding for if this, then that kind of things inside of the routers and the decisioning agent. You can add other steps a lot easier than going back and adjusting all of your routers.
Is there any, no, that's great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Great session, by the way. The last one as well. For the AI agents, like, is there any, I guess, appetite or any plan in the roadmap to add like templates for agents? Kind of like, you know, like a groups of where you can group like scenarios and have them possibly, to be like shared, like exported as well, and something you can import as well.
Yeah, I can look really quick at the roadmap. That's my knowledge, but it's updated.
Justin, what would the use case be that you were looking for something like that?
Well, something like templates, right? Like the same idea in a way, but you have a kind of a bundle right now, like kind of the bare of entry. It's, not super straightforward, like especially like, you want to get in, you want to get started with a bunch of agents, or at least an agent that, kind of already groups in together, like kind of like a recipe, like in any pattern, anything like in design, or think about like, for example, mirror board would have like your, set of various mirror boards, you know what I mean? Like kind of thing that you can out of the box just get started quickly.
Okay. Yeah, Robbie can check. He's internal with Make. He can check internally to see if there's something there. I will ask. I'm going to be working next week. I'm going to the Make Waves over in Munich.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to be meeting with some of the people there. I will talk to them and see if there's anything, coming up for that. And then if there are, I'll make sure that I mention it. Or if you want to shoot me an email, my email's on that document. If you want to email me, I can get back to you after I talk to somebody and see if they have something going. I would think offhand, that they would probably want to hear more about what your desired use case would be, just because whenever you start talking about AI, things are so custom that I think that it would be something that they would want to get some ideas of, maybe use cases you're thinking of, and then be able to say, okay, that's something we could work to build. But AI is pretty custom to the individual. So yeah, so if you have like ideas of that, let me know as well, because I'd love to take that in and see what we could do.
Yeah,
same.
sure.
Yeah, I would love that context. There is something coming later in the year for library as tools. It says enable easier setup of AI agents with library of tools. I'm assuming that since we collect a lot of like group analysis on how people are using AI, obviously, like we hear from customers, it'll probably be curated around like what we see and hear people using the most for that library. But there is a library as tools coming for agents to be set up a little bit easier and enabled. What it is specifically, do not know, but you should see some type of templates or like easier enablement the next couple of months with agents.
That sounds pretty close to what I'm asking. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, which is a great question because I didn't know that, so now I know. Thanks, Justin.
No problem. Awesome.
Did that answer the question that was asked initially about agents? Giving a good overview on what was there?
I mean, is there like any other more sessions that like as a part of the advanced where you can actually go deep dive into like agents? Is there anything planned by any chance for
We can definitely do that. That's a big push right now. I know that at the Waves event that's next week, they're really going heavy into AI. So we can do that. Like we can make that the next session if we want to, talking more about that, because that's definitely something that people are asking about.
Yeah, that would be great.
Would you be interested in implementing and showing how to implement AI in a scenario, or agent specifically, or?
Well, I mean, like you said, like what I understand is basically like the scenarios are kind of your tools. Like, agents can call different tools, like different scenarios. So it's like a compilation of scenarios, and then you have one type of orchestrator that can kind of pick and choose which scenario to use for which use case.
Yeah, we can work on making that like the next update or advanced session.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah,
that one's on the 3rd, Jeff, too, so we can sync on it tomorrow and then make sure that we get that set up. And we'll send out another reminder for that one as well. So I feel like it'll be a popular session.
I have one more question, Robbie. Like for the startup program, like, is there any like, do you connect with people? Is there any like additional support that you connect with people for like feedback and stuff, or on the platform? Or
yeah, I would love that. Either you can send me an email or I'll drop 2 things in the chat for you. But yeah, we love to collect the feedback you have for the use case things that you're working on. Definitely helps inform these sessions and help us figure out what's happening throughout startup program. So I'll drop my calendar in the chat and my emails.
Okay, perfect. I'll book something.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Any other questions for what we've going on?
And then as a reminder, I'll send, while you think about your questions, I'll send the recording after this, the link to the calendar. We try to set them out for a quarter based on what me and Jeff have going on, but at least 2 a month. So if you subscribe to the Luma calendar, you'll see all the new events pop up and you can subscribe to them or register for them. And Jeff's information, so I'm going to try to share that as well, was that you can connect with him if you want more one-off intimate sessions. If there's anything else that you need, let me know and I can add it to the follow-up.
That'd be great. Maybe something would be also useful is like error handling session.
We did error handling was the last one we did, right?
I mean, you mean for the basic one or the advanced?
I thought we did. We can go deeper into error handling if we need to. I thought that maybe we were just talking about it. Let me go look real quick on what we had.
Was that the one that Michael led maybe in the intro session?
That may have been that.
Yeah.
People went pretty deep in some of those things. So,
Oh, they have been there.
no, we didn't. We did not do error handlers. I'm sorry. We did iterators and aggregators, not error handlers. So we can work on that as well. So we'll work on. Those are great questions for the advanced sessions of how to work on certain things. So we can work on making those like the next 2 events. So we do error handlers, and then did you have a specific question on error handlers or just?
Many, but I don't think we can cover that now.
Okay. And you can email me too, and I can get back to you. So you're not waiting for a month or 2 till that stuff comes through. Plus the, in Make they have their academy and they have things like that you can work with there. So, but yeah, feel free to email us. We can get back to you with some answers on that.
We'll do. And one more. So Robbie, like for the the previous recordings for these sessions for advanced, like some of the ones that let's say people I missed or people could miss, like is there like a place where you can find all those, or is that something you can share? Or
Yeah, I can go and send you an email after this of the previous sessions.
Okay.
We have them in a drive, but I don't have like a YouTube channel or anything set up. So I can just kind of go through and figure out what we have, send them to you as well.
Okay. Awesome.
Very good.
Thank you.
Well, awesome, guys. Great questions. We'll work on putting AI agents and error handlers at the top of the list for the next advanced sessions that we work on. Like I said, my email's in there. If you guys have questions, feel free to send a quick question. We can try to get back to you, with whatever it is, even if it's after the event or after the session that we're doing. Hopefully this was helpful, and let us know what other questions you might have.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks, Robbie.
All right, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Take care.